Hi, today we're here with Keiron, CEO of MyCognition. Thank you for cycling in.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's a lovely day.
Yeah. So why don't you explain to us what MyCognition do?
MyCognition, we're a cognitive health company. We've developed the means to track, to develop, and conserve, maintain your cognition. And your cognition is that what controls your behavior and your emotions.
Yeah.
So in a good state means you're performing well, doing really good things, acting well, functioning well. In a poor state, you're not. And in a chronically poor state, it predisposes you towards poor mental health. You're not thinking correctly. So the 5 domains we look at are things such as executive function, your ability to plan, to organize, be creative. That controls your emotions. Working memory, which is your decision making, both arithmetic decision making, calculating, but also comprehending.
Okay.
Attention, your ability to focus, concentrate on something, or in this situation, I'm giving my attention to you. Well, I'm listening to you, you're listening to me. Processing speed, your ability to act with speed and accuracy, switch tasks quickly, work with energy. And episodic memory, your ability to use your past recollection of events, bring them into the current context, and use them as your wisdom to get up learning curves.
Yeah.
So you put all those things together in a good state, that's good leadership management skills, good skills.
Yeah.
In a very poor crush state, it's like being stuck in a rut, and you can't move, you can't go anywhere, and you need a helping hand to pull you out from that.
Yeah. And would you be able to kind of go into how MyCognition started out? Because I do remember watching a video of you in the Netherlands, which was quite some time ago.
That was some time ago. We've moved on a little bit, but still the same, really. I mean, my background is pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I've worked on antidepressants, anxiolytics, drugs for anxiety, for schizophrenia, dementia, Parkinson's, etc. And as good as they are, they leave a lot to be desired. So I was looking, is there an alternative way that we could treat people with those disorders? And I came across this video of a functional MRI scanning of the brain while someone was playing a computer game.
Okay.
And what you saw is they were playing specific parts of this game. Specific parts of the brain were lighting up. And that's indicative of blood flow going to an area of the brain, energizing it, taking oxygen, nutrients, and taking the toxins away. So it's strengthening. It's like strengthening specific neuronal pathways. And it sowed the seed at that time. If this is happening by chance, can we do something with it? So I had discussions with people. This was in around about 2008. And I had discussions with people. We couldn't use MRI scans. That's not practical to do those in the community in any numbers. They're very expensive, difficult to do. You need very expensive equipment. But we got onto this thing in terms of you could use psychometric tests, behavioural tests which test cognition, and you could use that to measure someone's brain health. So the first thing we did, this is what led to MyCognition, the first thing we did was to develop 10 of these tests, and we've now, through testing, through analysing, through years and millions of pounds of work, we've got down to 5 tests which are clinically validated. They're technically, scientifically, clinically validated, and you can do them on your phone, 15 minutes, it will give you an overview of your brain health. And it's something you can repeat. You can do this as often as you like, so we can track now your brain health. So if you're in a good phase and you're going well, everything's going well for you, you should see your brain health improving. If you're in a bad phase, you should see it declining. We should then be able to change it. So as well as making this assessment, this tracking tool, we also made a training tool. And the training tool's got loops of training which correspond to each of those areas we're measuring. And from a personal point of view, it picks up your score, your cognition score, trains you in all 5 domains, but trains you more intensely in those where you've got weaknesses, where you've got the most room for development. So it's personalised training. So some of the work we do is in a school setting. So in a class, you see all the kids, they're all looking around, checking, are we all playing the same game? There's no stigma, totally inclusive. However, they're all playing a game that's personalised to their needs. So it is inclusive. There is no stigma, but it's totally personalised, and that's what you can do with tech. Well, that's one of the reasons why we're getting such great results. And then the third thing we've done is that now that we've got you, and we call that training, it's like physiotherapy for the mind. It's like you do that for 1 to 3 months. Do it daily, like you would. If you went to see a physiotherapist, I want you to do this training daily for 1 to 3 months. You do this 1 to 3 months. You get into a good state. Now to maintain and consolidate that, we say, now you're in a good state, why don't you think about a good habit? So we very gently sort of educate and nudge you into picking up a habit around physical exercise, nutrition, hydration, sleep, and social interactions. And you can do all 5 if you like over a period of time, but you've got access to those as well.
Yeah.
And it's this thing in terms of saying, although we think of our mind as floating above our heads, it's actually part of our physicality.
Yeah.
So if we look after ourselves physically, we'll be looking after this as well, this organ in here. And it's a much better way doing it physically than saying, no, you have to play this game for the rest of your life. Go back to it if you have to. If you see yourself declining, go back to it. But the physical habits, they're the things that will maintain that growth in cognition that you've got, maintain it and help you grow it even further.
Do you recommend users kind of use the game at a specific time in the day? Because there are times in the day where I can't recall anything. There are other times in the day where I'm really, really sharp. So do you recommend using it in the morning, afternoon?
Not really. It really is. It's we say do 15 minutes every day. So when are you going to find 15 minutes in your day that you can schedule daily? So put it in your diary now, and then you will do it. So if you schedule it in and it's in there, then the alert will come up. You then click it. You can do it on any. You can do the training on any device you like. We say do the assessment. Use the same device all the time to keep it consistent. But when it comes to the training, you can do it on a laptop, desktop, on a handheld device, tablet, whatever. And you could, if you wanted to, choose any time of the day, provided you get to this roughly an hour and a half a week, and then you'll do that. You'll get to 75 minutes by doing 15 minutes or more a day. Then choose any time. In time, we're collecting data, and in time, we may be able to do certain profiles that the training for certain people, certain profiles, is more beneficial in the morning than in the afternoon. It's one of the great things. We're collecting millions of data points, and we're only able to analyze a certain amount of that. In time, we want to use that for AI purposes, artificial intelligence, dive into that data, look at some profiles, and as well as looking at the profiles around the assessment and doing more profiling there, we can also, great idea, let's look at your training and see if that has a specific benefit to certain people at certain times of the day, certain conditions. So this is where we've got lots of research we can do here. It's fantastic. And you just give me another idea.
What was that?
Well, in terms of looking to see whether we could look, when's the best time for different people with different profiles to do their training. My view is just do the bloody training. You know, I don't care what you do it.
Okay.
And we've not looked at that. So that's something that we won't look at tomorrow because we're just so busy. But the data's there. If you go back and look at that, because we within that anonymously we pick up this person started training at 9 o'clock in the morning. They train until 9:30. So it is something we can use to see do those people train better? Do we get better results from those? In a school setting, they say there's a calming effect. They see better behaviour post-training.
Really?
The kids are easier to manage. So in a school setting, it might be something they want to do first thing in the morning to set the kids up for the rest of the day. It might be just after lunch. Probably not something they want to do at the end of the day because they're losing that benefit of that management. So you want to do it early in the day rather than later in the day. So we anecdotally we are picking up that.
And you talked at the beginning about the different types of the 5 different domains. You know, you talked about the working memory, retention, processing, episodic, and executive function. Are there specific domains that kind of constitute towards someone being a genius at maths or being a genius coder?
And if I were to pick 2, I'd probably say you need great attention and you need a great working memory. And I'll tell you a story on this. We get to see a lot of kids that have been diagnosed with ADHD, like an attention deficit. We put them through our system, to put them through the assessment, and actually many of them have got very good attention. And what they've got, so if they're focused on something that they enjoy doing, that they're really into, they will focus on it, and you can't break that attention. So a teacher comes into the classroom, or their mum or dad come in, or their name gets called, they don't look up. And so their teachers or the mum and dad thinks they've got attention deficit. Let's treat their attention deficit. They've got really strong attention. What they've not got is the ability to go from, I can pay attention here, to now switch. Teacher comes in or somebody else, I look up to see who it is. And what controls that is their executive function. So it makes them go. Now, if somebody's got this really strong attention, you can't break it, they would make a fantastic coder. Because they're never going to get distracted. They're never going to create poor code because they're all the time focusing on that. So they will be writing out that code. Or if they're into games, certain games, they will stay stuck to that game. They will learn that game inside out. That will help them. Now, along with coding, you need to have a good maths and that sort of ability. That's where your working memory comes along.
Okay.
Your working memory is your ability to hold something in the short-term space of your cognition, think about other things, do something with them, and then come back to that original number, if it is, do a further calculation. You've then made a decision on it. Now, you can do that iteratively. You can hold several things in sequence, and people with really strong working memory can hold several numbers in their mind. They can think about things and then iteratively come back to one or several of them. They can make a whole series of decisions, a really strong decision around that. Now, again, for coding purposes and thinking about coding and the algorithms that you build into coding, that will be a really useful skill to have. So those two things for coders, and a strong working memory, a strong attention. But where you're going with this is that those domains, yes, you could lay them out and profile them. Different people need different things to do look at it in different ways. So an architect would have to pay, they're drawing up plans, and then the last thing they're doing is making sure that the windows fit that high-rise block. And you want those windows to be multi-millimeter perfect. Because you don't want them to hire a crane for £1 million that day and find the glass is too big, it won't go in, or the glass is so small it falls the way through. So that person's got to pay a lot of attention. They've got to be really accurate what they're doing. Don't necessarily have to work fast. They don't have to be, speedy at what they're doing, but they do have to be accurate. Others, like a trader, they've got to be speedy. A trade comes along, they've got to make a split decision: do I go for that trade or not? Because otherwise they might miss it. Now they've got to be right more often than not, because otherwise they're going to lose their bank, their investment organisation money. But they're going to work on the speed, not so much on the accuracy. I'll take a chance every now and again. I do all the analysis, I do everything else, but every now and again my gut feel will say, this is a good thing, and if I'm roughly right most of the time, that's okay. But if I spend hours doing the calculations around it,
this is really interesting. I mean, let's talk about your product suite and kind of where you're applying your technology. You said that you're applying it into the education sector. Would you be able to kind of talk us through the product and I guess how the students are doing so far?
Yeah, so as I mentioned there, there's the three elements to the product. So there's a cognitive assessment. In doing the cognitive assessment, we're getting as close as you can to a good overview of the health of that child's brain. We've got enough data that we can say for the age of that child, are they on the right trajectory? Are they in roughly the right areas you would expect for the cognitive development of that child at that age? We can do that. So we've got lovely data that shows increases in cognition up towards the age of around about early 20s, then plateaus, and then in the 50s you start seeing this long decline. We've got data as far as from 7 to 103. So this 7, say to 21, the education years, we can say to an individual in a school, are you on the right trajectory? By averaging a class, is that class on the right trajectory? By averaging an entire school, by their scores, by their average age, is that school on the right trajectory? We can also look at it in terms of, is this school, they might be in an area of deprivation, but are they taking kids on you'd expect low levels of cognition, but they're turning out them at good levels, so they're actually adding considerably to them, or are they just taking all kids at the high level, not really adding much at all? So there's a hell of a lot we can just do with our assessment. But I mentioned, those that we can identify that are probably off, say 1 or 2 standard deviations off the mean, away from being at least average, we can enhance them, we can bring their cognition back to something. So, and if you like, the way that we see kids with poor cognition exhibiting in schools, if they've got poor cognition, they exhibit it 3 ways. They either exhibit it by being badly behaved, so they behave badly, and it's their way of saying, I don't want to be a part of this because you asked me a question, you're going to make me look stupid, so I'm going to behave badly to get kicked out of class, I'm macho or whatever. They do it by just, they're not very good at subjects, I'm poor at maths, or they do it by becoming socially isolated. They just sit there really quiet and hope the teacher doesn't ask them a question. And what do we treat the symptoms of those things. So the kids that badly behave, we punish them in some way. We take away something, we don't let them go out to play, put them in detention, but they're punished. The kids that are poor at maths, we treat the symptoms, we give you more maths. So Jimmy, you're poor at maths, we're going to give you more maths. And Jimmy thinks, why are you punishing me for something I'm not good at? Give me more English, I'm good at that, but you have to give me more maths. And then the kid that's socially isolated, if we're really honest about it, most teachers ignore them because they're not disrupting the class. So I can get on with the rest of the class. You just sit there. It's another form of punishment.
Yeah.
What we should be finding is why are they behaving in those ways, and it's their cognition. So you do an assessment of their cognition, find their cognition's either one area or all areas in deficit. We automatically train those. So in each case, the behaviour of the child is then improved. They've got no reason now to badly behave. The kid that's poor at maths, suddenly they're engaging in maths, they're putting their hands up, not just to answer questions, but to say, sir or miss, I don't understand that, can you tell me it again? Teacher thinks, I've got you, I've got engagement, I've got you, you'll get your qualification. And the kids that's like this gets the confidence to come out, and they become engaged as well. Now in each of those cases, those three kids, as well as exhibiting those symptoms, they're also highly predisposing themselves towards mental illness. That's a sign of poor cognition. It's a sign of that. Even if we don't diagnose mental illness in them then, mental illness could come out later in life. There are not many studies because of the difficulty previously in assessing cognition in large numbers, but enough to show that, so like kids that went on to get schizophrenia, you look back in their lives, they were 1 or 2 standard deviations away from the mean for their age group in terms of what their cognition should have been.
Wow, okay.
And cognition is your behaviour, it's your emotions, it's your thought processes. If they're all screwed up because you've got poor cognition, they get ground into you, they then come out eventually in could be schizophrenia, could be anxiety, could be depression. But you're predisposing yourself to those things. So in the school setting, as well as fixing those behavioural things, we're also doing things in terms of enhancing the health of those kids, so that they're on a better trajectory going forward. They're in better mental health for the rest of their lives.
What effect does trauma have on a child's cognitive ability? So let's just say we have a child in primary school getting top grades, but let's just say a parent passed away. What parts of their memory and what domains of their cognitive function are most affected?
I've come to the school. We've just completed, in fact, it's been published recently, was a study in Canada where we worked with children that were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and these were children that had been sexually abused when they were younger. So really, really tragic cases, a real need for these children in desperate states, and we worked with the clinic there to assess and then train them. Got some great results. But one of the things that trauma does, if your brain, when it's traumatized by anything, one of the things it can do, if you're in a weakened state in that, it can try to block it out. If that was a really, really painful experience, it says, okay, I don't want you to have to go through that experience again. So almost like occludes that memory from you. So it does its best to try to block it, because the memory is a very, very painful one. It will destroy your cognitive state. It will make you highly emotive, either angry or upset generally. Let's say you do those two things. And the brain says, under those conditions, you're not going to react well, so I will take that away. I will occlude this. Now, the difficulty is that just trying to block that out, every now and again, something will trigger that off. Something will occur that was maybe similar to the event leading up to it in some way. And then suddenly you have this memory that you're trying to hold back, and it comes back, and it's almost in post-traumatic stress, it comes back as though you relive it. Now, if that happens to you once, then you're scared witless in terms of, I've relived that again. Am I going to relive it? So you're under constant anxiety. And living under constant anxiety, you're more predisposing yourself to say it will occur again. So what we try to do there, it's almost like we strengthen. It's almost like part of that there would be strengthening the episodic memory. So you're able to put yourself into the context. Don't block out that thought. It was painful, but now let's consider it in a really rational thing. You went through that, but you've come out. You survived. And actually, you've come out, and you can almost like say to some people, there's no such thing as a bad experience. There are some really awful experiences, but you can learn from that, and that can make you stronger. So you build upon it in that way. So you build that memory you're building upon. You build on your attention to make your attention so that when you do need to focus away from it, because you've got something important to do, you've got that strong enough attention that you don't allow that thought to come in. You build your working memory in the same way that you can hold things in that short space of your mind, and you build your executive function in a way that you're not anxious that these are going to happen again, so you're building up anxiety all the time. No, I've dealt with it, so I've got a strong episodic memory, I've got a strong executive function, strong attention, strong processing speed, strong working memory. That enables me to deal with it. I can put that into the compartment it is, and actually it will make me stronger. Very few people, thankfully, will have experienced that. By me experiencing it, I'm unique, and that gives me skills that I can share with others in the future. So you can turn that negative into a positive. And our way of training the cognition, it's a positive, active process of going through, of enabling those children to get stronger cognition to deal with that.
And what improvements have you seen in children as they use your game more often?
We've done a lot of stuff. So in that post-traumatic stress disorder, we saw improvements in cognition, we saw improvements in post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, improvements in depression, and improvements in anxiety. They were the three key measures, as well as cognition. So significant. In school settings, we've seen academic improvements. We've done studies where we've covered a whole host of subjects, seen improvements there versus controls. We always, if we can do, against a control setting. And we've seen it, like I said, anecdotally, we've seen improvements in behaviour, attitude, motivation. Teachers have picked up on that. We're working with a group of psychologists in the Netherlands, and they're working in a school where, again, these are kids that have been badly behaved. They've been kicked out of one school with another. And in this school, they're working with the difficult children there. And these are early adopters. They've been using all forms of cognitive training for years. In the last year, they've used ours. And they told us this story that normally they take these kids and it take at least a term before they can get them back into class again. Well, they're going back after a month or so. And the teachers are saying to them, what have you done to those kids? I don't recognise them.
Really?
Really. So they're seeing something more broad, more deep, more extensive than they've seen with training before. And we think this is because our training, one, it's that targeted. We make the kids, make the adults, everyone. We make you train the areas where you've got the weaknesses, where you've got the most room for development. It's also the type of training we've got. We use loops of training. A lot of cognitive training that's out there, it's puzzles. You do a puzzle and it's like you're calculating ka-chunk. Ours is a flow. We think our flow is more conducive to laying down and generating and developing, strengthening a neuronal pathway than this step-by-step that you do with a puzzle. And we think those two things, the targeted and this flow aspect to our training, it's a bit like yoga for the mind. That flow training is more conducive to laying down, strengthening these neuronal pathways. So we're seeing this quicker and more stronger aspects of our training coming through.
I never really saw like lack of self-esteem and lack of mental function to be associated with cognitive strength and cognitive fitness. But it makes so much sense now.
It does, and I worked for 27 years in pharmaceuticals as a neuroscientist, as someone developing drugs for these areas, and I never really thought about the cognitive aspects of what we were doing or not. We just looked at the symptoms of all these diseases. Are we reducing the symptoms? You get underneath, and you get into this area of cognition. The only time I really came across cognition was when I was working in the area of dementia, and there it was mostly to do with memory. But once you get a step back from it, you realise that cognition is there. It's those 5 areas of cognition. They underpin they control our behaviour, our emotions, they control our mental state. And there's this sudden realisation to me that this is, it's not you get mentally ill and then suddenly your cognition fails. You're in a poor cognitive state for a long period of time, then you become mentally ill. And it's the other way around. And this is where we are. We're sort of challenging psychiatric preconceptions around this. Psychiatrists will look for the symptoms. They can't measure, they can't do a blood test, they can't measure your heart rate, things like that. So they look at the symptoms, they talk to you, a lot of it, every way they can think, how do you feel? And it's very sophisticated, but at the end of the day, by asking people how they feel, you're just getting the surface level of what's going on underneath. You go underneath and we're looking at cognition, and you're seeing a totally different picture. And I mentioned in terms of our assessment, you can do this on any device in 15 minutes. We've really changed the way that is, because the previous way was you do these with paper and pencil tests, take hours, and it costs you 500 quid to have a specialist there to do it. Now it's pennies, pounds to do these tests. So it's not one kid in a school, it's an entire school. We can do these in the workplace. You would never do these tests in the workplace. You never say, Fred, go and do this test with this man in a white coat, because everyone will be looking, for crying out loud. Fred's lost it. You'd send Fred off to a clinic, and Fred might or might not come back. Now you can say to everyone, you've got 15 minutes, your tea break, lunch break, sometime in the next month, do this assessment. You in the workplace, you get you get confidential report telling you where you're doing well, where you're not doing so well. You get put on this training program that's personalised to you.
Yeah.
The physiotherapy for the mind. You get given the habits that are personalised to you, and you run away with it. And we see shifts. We see shifts in terms of overall, from the company's point of view, overall shifts in their cognitive fitness, and we see individuals moving from a poor health state to a good health state. You move that, you're also going to be performing better.
Yeah.
Now the company, if they're willing to, they can get an anonymised picture of how healthy their company is at the beginning, and then how it's progressing. It's all anonymised. We can tell them the profile of that bottom 20% who are most at risk, and we can say to them, you've got some of your best people in there working their socks off for you, and they're burning out. They're your most loyal people.
Yeah.
Get them to manage themselves. They still work their socks off for you. Now and again, they're going to say that smile on their face when someone says, can you do this, Aisha? Aisha will say, no, I can't, rather than yes, and burn herself out. So she's managed herself. But they'd be better off for you, better off for the company, better off for themselves. When they leave, they'll be in a better state than they would have been, better for society. They're not going to just downward into despair. They're going to be fitter all round. So this is good for you. But it's all anonymous. We don't tell them who they are.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because essentially what you guys are doing is providing an interpretation of the mental health of a specific company. And whilst there are a lot of prescriptions like meditation and yoga, I guess you guys are providing the anecdotal
that we believe
baseline of the mental health of a company and a person itself.
There's nothing else out there like what we're doing. And the reason I couldn't say this 6-7 months ago, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they asked a company called Intentional Futures to do an overview of cognition. Yeah. We were one of 30 companies they looked at, and in the end they said, you're unique. Nobody else is assessing or training to anywhere near the level that you're doing it. Nobody else that's doing that has got the NHS approval, has got medicines approval as a regulatory medical device, ORCA approval to the level that you've got. All these things you've got that nobody else has. And I didn't know until that time, because I thought there must be other companies working in cognition, there must be other companies doing a similar thing. Nobody else is. So we're out there on our own. So we are able to go into companies, and however good their mental health is for their staff, most of it still comes down to they're asking the staff how they feel, and then they're giving them an option to try consulting, try mindfulness, try things. It's like going to the gym and training blind. You're not measuring anything properly, and so therefore you'll not be able to direct those people to here's the best things that you can do for that. We're measuring, we're assessing, we're tracking, allowing you to track your mental health. We're allowing you then to look at the interventions that you can do alongside that are good for you, and by measuring you can see, am I improving? Yeah, I am, so do more of it. Then I get to certain habits, they improve me, we'll carry on doing it. Keeping that, you're keeping yourself in good health rather than decline. So we think what it is pretty much unique.
And so in terms of the solution you guys provide companies, would you be able to kind of delve into that and kind of the success stories or the success data that you've been able to extract basically just talk about the impact that you're having with corporates? It's
still early days with corporates. We've only a few, but the successes we've had is that we can say, here's a picture of your company. So we can say, here where you are, and how do you compare to the community? So are you better than the community? Are you below the community? So far, all the companies we've looked at, they've been slightly better. They've been better than the community. In other words, their mean is above 50%. Okay. But what we have been able to show to them is that we can improve that. And the number of people that in that long tail going down into that poor, most at risk area, we've moved them from that poor health state. We've seen percentage of them moving into better health states. We've actually been able to show them to do that. We can also say to corporates, as well as us doing this personal, it's anonymised, but we're giving people this personal journey to their own fitness. You as a company now know, what are we most at risk at? So those people down in the poor state, is it mostly attention? Well, if it is, you can then do something about attention in your workplace. So water, hydration is good for attention. You kindly bought me a bottle of water. That's great. This is good. Water's good for us. Encouraging people to walk up and down the stairs, get their cardiovascular system going. That's good. Pumping the blood round. There's a lot of things that you can do that will enhance attention. So as well as these individual things, you can do the overarching things, and you'll know you're doing it directed at what's needed. Not just, we've got the money to do something, let's bring in mindfulness, let's bring in something else. No, you can do something that's fit for purpose.
Yeah. And in terms of, you're also working with the NHS, right?
Yep.
In what capacity?
Quite a number. Here we're working, as you'd expect, in psychiatric and in neurological conditions. So we're just kicking off some work where we're looking to see if we can develop a full-scale product for dementia.
Wow.
And that will be around, can we assess, can we monitor, track dementia? Can we then train and prevent, delay, ameliorate dementia?
Yeah.
So that's a piece of work that's going on. We're also working in psychiatric areas around areas like depression, anxiety. Mm-hmm. But we're also looking at with the NHS around a lot of what we call long-term chronic physical disorders. So let's take one. One is diabetes. Mm-hmm. And in Manchester, we're kicking off with a test bed there. One of the NHS, they've put together a group of companies of which we're one. And if you look at long-term diabetics, people with long-term diabetes, they have poor cognition, they have poor mental health. So they go to see their health practitioner on a say yearly basis. So, okay, Mr. Smith, I always ask you this, but the two things you can really do for your diabetes is to improve your physical activity and to look at your diet. Yeah. And Mr. Smith's nodding, and the health practitioner's thinking, you're not listening to what I'm saying. Here's your drugs, you'll be lucky if you remember to take them. I'll see you in a year's time, but in a year's time, you will decline. Your lifestyle is taking you to that decline. Why is that? Well, because of their poor mental health, their poor cognitive health, Mr. Smith sitting there is not paying attention. He's not going to recall what you said. He's not going to make any decisions coming out from there what to do. He's not going to be able to plan to organise or put into action anything that you're saying. He's in a poor state. So he is lucky if he does just remember to take his medication. Yeah. You get him into, so we're going to train him, get him to a better cognitive state so that suddenly I can engage, just like that kid at school with maths can engage. I can engage you and he can say, well, yeah, okay, nurse, I could look at getting off the bus and stop earlier, walking the last half mile to work every day. I could cut out those sugary drinks. And then the health practitioner was, I've got you. Just as that teacher was, I've got, here's some plans, we can do this, we can do this. Yeah. And they can put you on, so instead of your lifestyle doing that, suddenly your lifestyle is doing this. Yeah. It was deputy leader of the Labour Party, Tom Watson, who was diagnosed with diabetes. Okay. He was an enormous guy, didn't look well whenever you saw him. He transformed himself. He didn't want to have diabetes, so he went on to exercise, he cut out alcohol, went on diets, and he transformed himself. And he even said, my brain feels better. I feel smarter, quicker, sharper as a result of doing it. He's almost like the poster child we could put out there. So with a lot of these long-term disorders, so it's not just diabetes, but a whole series of cardiovascular, pulmonary things like asthma, COPD. If you get yourself into a good physical state, physical habits, you can actually change the course of your disease. Now the important thing is these long-term disorders that we're looking at with the elderly, including things like dementia, they are going to cost us the earth to treat them. Yeah. It's like you say to people now, maybe it's not on your agenda, but are you putting into a pension? You will get to a stage where you start worrying about putting into your pension pot because you don't want to retire and not be able to look after yourself. But what we're saying to people now is put into your pension pot so it will pay for your long-term care. Yeah. What we say, as well as putting into your pension pot, thinking about that, also put into your cognitive pot. Yeah. So particularly active aging in your 40s, 50s, begin to enhance your cognition, keep it in a good state. Keep your pension going so that when you do retire, you're going to retire and you can spend that money to enjoy yourself, not to pay for you to go into long-term care. Yeah. That's what we should. And that way we're taking the burden off the healthcare system. Also, again, you'll be working better at work. You'll be working maybe for longer at work and enjoying it. Yeah. Work will get more out of you. They'll be pleased. They'll love you. You'll leave with as good as mental health, cognitive health as when you started. Yeah. You'll go out and society joins as benefits as well. We calculated that for every 1 point change of MyCQ, for the overall population of the UK, 1 point change for the overall population is £2 billion. Wow. When you get down to individuals in the workplace, a 1 point change for an individual is between £50 and £500, depending on where that person's working. Yeah. So there's a huge economic as well as a humanistic aspect to this. On the humanistic side, it's still for young men. The main cause of death for young men is suicide. Yeah. That is staggering. Women are twice as likely to have depression than men. That's staggering. Why do we have these stats? Why do they exist? We want to do something about them. So as well as the NHS and looking at things like dementia, Alzheimer's, that we want to bring this back to the workplace and start getting people fit there, in a good
cognitively fit,
and go back into schools. Start from there. So all the way through. So part of our mission is to have everyone, just as you would regularly have your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your glucose, your heart rate measured, your lung volume. Do that every now and you're physically fit.
Yeah.
Have your cognition. So you can say my cognition is. Yeah. Get people talking about that and get cognitively fit at the same time. Keep yourself cognitively fit.
In terms of, to be able to create this type of product, do you have to diversify your data sets?
The complexity behind what we're doing is immense.
Yeah.
On the surface, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So you're just getting a score, and from playing some puzzles to get a score, and then you're playing a video game for crying out loud to do the training. There's a huge level of sophistication in these, far more than I think most people would, particularly in the medical profession. When we first spoke to them before we started getting clinical results, I think they would give us credit for. Yeah. So there's, as well as that, it's huge costs to develop these things. We've spent around about £5 million to get to this stage of our development.
Do you take like a researcher approach?
We have tried to work with the best people in terms of creating the games, the best people in terms of doing the algorithms behind calculating people's assessments, their scores on that. We've tried wherever we can to outsource that. We keep the IP, but we try to work with the best people. So that's one of the reasons it's been expensive. So on the tech side, we've also tried to do all the way along in parallel that clinical trials. So as well as, like I say, we do case studies now and again. We do try it. So you tell us, write something, tell us how good it is. We've also got the trials which show there was a control group, there was a test group, and you compared, and this group came out better. The test group was better than the control group. And you can't do that. The highest level you can do that is in a clinical trial. Yeah. We've said to universities, do it. Whatever it is, the outcome is you publish it. We'll have no say over this, and they're writing great things about us. Yeah. So back in the day, back when we first started, the tech advice I got was, don't do clinical trials. They're too costly, too risky, take too long. Tech people don't do them. And the medical advice I got was, well, don't do games because games are frivolous. Nobody ever believe you. So I was spat at by the tech people. I was spat at by the medical community. I must have been mad. I am mad to do what I did. But we went down the middle.
That's bizarre because
we got the best from both.
That's bizarre because in gaming, you could take in vast amount of data. That's
you understand that. You understand that as a tech, but if you put your hands in, someone's a medic and they've dealt with drugs and they've dealt with very serious assessments and diagnostics and this, that, and the other, and they just saw the games as frivolous. So it's about aligning. It's about aligning the best from the tech world with the best from the medical world. That's what we're trying to do, and in doing so, we've created something quite special. Yeah. Nobody else would have invested that at the time that has set off. So. One must have been mad to have done it, but it's coming to fruition now. That furrow between those two areas that we went down, we're now coming up and out of it, and people are looking and saying, "There's something in this." Yeah, and it's a marker to put down. Tech, don't be afraid of doing clinical trials. Yeah, I've seen some fantastic things done in tech where they've veered away from doing any trials with it. We've got to find ways to fund those because med tech is going to be a big part of our future. Yeah. Equally on the medical side, you don't have to give up your drugs, you don't have to give up your medical ways of thinking of things, but try to also engage with the tech world and engage with things. As you say, look at the positive side you're going to get through gaming, through gamification of changing behaviours that you can do through that. And if we can align those, we've got some hope for the future. Yeah. We do. I think you get to the stage where your physical fitness is as strong as it can be. Yeah. And then it gets to the stage where it's no longer beneficial to be any more physically fitter. That's when your cognition really comes into bear. Yeah. And the difference between the great teams and the also-rans are going to be those teams that have got the smart players. So working memory, that ability to do on the spot, make good decisions. Where should I be? Where's the ball likely to be to do those sort of calculations? Processing speed. So the pass I give is inch perfect. The volley I hit into the top left-hand corner is millimetre perfect. Yeah. Goes just under the bar, just over the top of that outreaching hand. All of those things come into this. It's also within sport now. It's a consequent partly the amount of money that's in there, the stress that's on these players. Some of these games are worth millions of pounds, just a single game.
Yeah.
On one way or the other to those clubs.
Yeah.
Some of them even multi-million pounds. To be playing in those games, you need a hell of a lot of resilience. And if you just throw people in and say they're physically fit, go and do your stuff, and you're not looking after them from their mental health point of view, there's now, you're seeing senior players, particularly you're not seeing so many existing players, you're seeing past players who are coming out and saying, I had mental health problems. The Football League, they've got to look at this. They've got to look at, same as the Olympics, they've got to look after sportsmen. I love cricket. Ben Stokes, we saw what he did. He's had a difficult past.
Yeah.
Now he's a hero. He's a god, for crying out loud. Where does he come? How does he come down from that? We've got to look after those players. We've got to give them the cognitive, the mental resilience, as well as making them these physical, brilliant players that they are across the board. Yes, that's where we can help as well.
Yeah. Does your technology kind of have a good use case in like an engineering organization? We're in Old Street right now, full of nerds and coders.
One of the most interesting studies we did was an IT company in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And again, it was interesting. Yeah, it's anonymous, so I won't give it away. But any company we go into, we see a spread. We see people really strong cognition doing really well. Most of us, we're bumbling on in the middle. We could do better by enhancing our cognition. Then we see that a long tail. We see people that are struggling. And if those people are willing to talk about it, they've struggled. They've been in pain for some time. Yeah. But they cope. They cope with it in different mechanisms. Some of those coping mechanisms aren't good for them. They're actually making it worse. So there we got them onto a good regimen in terms of not only were we doing with them the cognitive training, we also got to do quite a lot of physical training as well, building into the habits. We saw transformation, moving them into a better health state, and so that was definitely in terms of like working with tech engineers. Yeah. Most of the work we've done is within the office space, within office settings. Yeah. We're about to kick off with a company where we're going to be working more with people working in factories, that type of thing. More manual workers. Yeah. So it will be interesting to get to profiles, but also in those sorts of settings, can we also find a way by which they can find time, get on their phones, get on their a pad, a tablet, and assess and train themselves.
But what other use cases does your technology have outside of maybe even sports and the school, the healthcare sector?
We've done quite a few things on the health side. We're doing a study at the moment looking at addictions.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they're doing this in the Netherlands. It's looking at mostly people with cannabis addictions. They tend to have poor cognition, making poor choices. Because if you come back from that, an addiction is a bad habit. And there's a cue for a habit. Then you think of the reward and you go through what the routine is. And once you link the cue with the reward, the routine just comes habitually. So if I feel absolutely like crap, I need something, because the reward is I feel better, cannabis, I'll smoke it, I'll do whatever it is, I'll take some form of drug to get me through this. And it's breaking that and putting something else in its place. If your cognition's in a poor state, you just leap into that. So that's another one. One area we're working on as well that's interesting is people with financial problems. If you've got financial problems, you're again more greatly predisposed towards have mental health problems. If you've got mental health problems, you're more predisposed towards having financial problems. The two go together. And give an example there, a case study. If you're in a situation where you're that close to the limit that if your washing machine breaks down, you've got no means of fixing it. You have to go and find a way of getting a loan to fix it. Otherwise, you can't wash your kids' clothes. You're just done for. Yeah. Someone comes along and says, "I'll give you £1,000." Great. You take it. You don't have to think. You don't have to think, where did he get the money? How did he get the money? You don't think, how do I pay it back? Yeah. You say, I'll take it because that's all you need at the moment. I'm in such a poor state. I need £1,000. I can get a new washing machine, and I can actually get some new clothes for the kids. That type of thing.
Yeah.
You don't realise there's a consequence of taking the money out of those circumstances. I've got to pay that person back £7,000, £8,000 to pay them back.
Yeah.
If I'd have gone into it, I could have got a loan from a credit union or something like that, and I would only have to pay them back £1,500. The rate of interest would. But you need to be in a good cognitive state to think of those things.
This is really interesting. I mean, what's amazing about what you guys do is you're able to kind of, I mean, despite the context and the environment we live in, I guess your technology is able to provide people with a baseline level of cognitive health, which is a massive. I really never comprehended the link between cognitive health and mental health.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've actually made that link.
Me neither. As I say, I worked in the pharma industry, worked in this. I didn't make it for many, many years. It was only a realisation of digging under the surface. The main reason within the pharmaceutical industry, we didn't have drugs that could help. As we developed the drugs for dementia, they only help for a very short period of time in terms of cognition. You wouldn't use them in any other indication, any other disease or disorder.
Yeah.
So we just ignored it. It's through tech. This is where I'm just such a firm believer in med tech being part of our answer for the future.
Yeah.
It can come along without side effects. It can be personalised. It can be targeted, and it can do a hell of a lot of good.
Yeah.
If we're willing to embrace it. But it's not a passive. Just take a pill, continue with your same lifestyle. It means you have to take certain activities.
Yeah.
You have to actively train in our case, and actively go on to, well, you don't have to, but it's good if you then go on to do a physical habit to capture that gaining cognition that you brought about. But it means change. That comes with, change we don't like.
Yeah.
So in order to bring that about, it's a cognitive decision.
Yeah.
You have to be in a good cognitive state. This is worthwhile doing.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys got some press from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is a massive feat. What in a fairy tale world, 5 years from now, like what are you hoping your technology could do and the impact it could have on the education sector, the NHS, and the corporate sector?
In 5 years' time, I'd love it if every child in the country was regularly assessed in terms of their cognition, once, twice a term.
Yeah.
Those that were falling behind, we were putting on our specific targeted training programs to strengthen their cognition, build their resilience. That way, that would help them academically, behaviourally, their mental health. I'd like it that this was in the workplace. 1 in 4 people in the workplace suffer, often in silence, huge cost to the country's economy. I'd like it that we accepted this was something we did in the workplace. We assessed ourselves regularly, and again, we had the time to do the training and the building into the habits. And then, with the NHS, that this was something that a doctor felt, rather than somebody comes in, are they depressed, are they suffering from anxiety, and I'm reaching for my prescription pad to give them a pill. Let's try this first of all. Let's put them as a first line. Let's assess their cognition, see if that's at stake, that's in not a good state. Let's put them on the training program, encourage them, give them every encouragement to do that. Changing their lifestyle is also probably going to mean that I don't have to resort to giving them the antidepressants, the anxiolytics, those other drugs, which they're there. We're still there if you're as a safety net. If you really fall over, I'll catch you, but I'll leave them as a last resort rather than as a first resort.
Is there anything specific that you've learned about maybe building product, kind of getting the med tech and the data scientists together?
I think if what I have seen is that when you do get people who are willing to listen to each other, and you lock them in a room together with post-it notes, with whiteboards, with pens and that type of thing, you can see some really great things occurring. If you've got that willingness, if you've got, it's almost like maybe I was like a catalyst there, like as the spark, and they were like fuel. You see the explosions go off in a good way. So if you can get people of the right mindset under those circumstances, I really do think in terms of like it's aligning people. None of us on our own with our own skill set is going to solve many problems, but if we can share our mindset, share our thoughts with others in an open way, then we can achieve a lot through doing that. My background was not tech. I'm still not tech-minded at all. So it's being able to rely and trust on people when they say, yeah, we can do something, explain to them, can you do this with that program? Going, yeah, we can do something like that. Then saying to them, then let's go and do it. That's where I've seen some great things being done. Yeah. And it's remarkable things, far more than I ever thought when I kicked off this journey. Yeah. And that thing, because I was 27 years in pharmaceuticals. I started when I was a 17-year-old. Yeah. So I was 45 when I left. And in some ways you think, well, that's mature as someone going into as an entrepreneur. Yeah. I was still new to it. Still had a lot of things to learn. Still have a lot of things to learn. And I think it's that mindset, curious, open-minded, lifelong learning. You keep that going, then I don't want to retire. Yeah. No point. Yeah. Having too much fun. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I
mean, I haven't really looked into whether you guys have raised money or anything like that. Have you fundraised?
No, I made money from my last company. Yeah. That's bankrolled us to date. Yeah. Happy to put more money if necessary, but we're looking for partners. We're looking for people, particularly. It's almost like we're an R&D company. So we've done the research and development. We've now got this technology ready to really commercialise. So we're looking for people who've got the commercial skills. Again, partnering. Yeah. We're looking to do that. Who can come in, maybe inject some money in, but also we want their expertise. So they've got expertise in the sectors we're working in, or they've got expertise geographically. We don't just want to work in the UK. Already we're working internationally. But when we're successful, we're going to have to be successful because we're successful in the US. That's going to be our biggest market.
Really? And what are the relationships that you see? Like, well, your company's come a long way, your product has come a long way. I mean, what relationships do you see that would probably be the most useful, mutually beneficial going forward for now?
So in the education sector, it'd be with a large education company. We can talk to a few schools at a time or college school groups. But a large education company, say, take it to the 20,000, 30,000 schools we're working with. So that would help. In the workplace, it would be talking like to a health insurer. We're insuring, 10 million lives. We want you part of our insurance package because this will enable an insurance company to be able to monitor the mental health of the population they're serving and see if they're assessing, see if they're training. Again, anonymously if they want to. They don't have to know who's doing it, but they're monitoring. That de-risks it entirely. Yeah. And we can work with them, giving all the incentives for people to go to better health. And then, to have good relationships with healthcare systems. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of healthcare systems outside the UK. NHS is good in its own way, but a lot of healthcare systems across Europe, managed care in the US, which are insurance-based. And a lot of what we're doing is about not just treating people when they're in poor health, but preventing them falling into it by saying, are they on the decline, preventing that decline, pushing them back up again. Yeah. So you don't get to the stage where you do need the drugs. You prevent that from occurring. Yeah.
You're working with the NHS in a meaningful way right now. I mean, is there anything that you've learned in terms of introducing technology into the NHS?
We tend to think of the NHS as one big entity. Yeah. And it's not. It's highly fragmented. Yeah. You've got primary care for the doctors, you've got secondary care for the hospitals and that type of thing. You've got each almost like group of surgeries have got their own way of managing and doing things in one part of the country versus others. So it's a nightmare working with the NHS. It's brilliant because it's so highly regarded. So I'm glad we're doing this work, but it's almost like we're doing this and we're being paid by the NHS or getting funding to do work with the NHS, and it's like doing real-world clinical studies. Yeah. It's doing clinical trials with real people in the real world. That data we can take to other countries. That will help us open up markets in the Netherlands, in the US. So it's good for that. And again, because they're more insurance-minded, it's probably that we may take off in other countries. Although we've started in the NHS first, we will continue pushing because we think there's a great need in this country, and we're here. But it may well be with our global ambitions that we see ourselves taking off more so in other countries than the UK.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get at is in terms of the approach, because there have been companies that have tried to work with the NHS and have just failed because they've been a little bit aggressive, and you can't really disrupt the healthcare sector here.
No, I mean, it's about forming partnerships, and it's about trying to understand. One of the things, going back to my drug time, we can do the health economics. We can do work with them and say, look, you work with us, there's a health economic benefit here. This is potentially, we get people changing their health states this is cost saving to you. So they would look at it from that point of view. So yeah, we'll work with you to embed this into your systems. So it's building those partnerships, and if you've got enough people that can understand, you're not just doing this, it's not just all about the money, you're not just gouging us in every way you can to make this commercially successful. You've got other incentives in mind as well. There's more than a willingness to say, okay, bring it on, we'll embed this. But it's not easy. Not easy.
And I've got a quick fire round.
Go for it.
So, most valuable investment you've made under £100?
Under £100?
Yeah.
I'd probably look something towards my bike there.
Yeah.
Pannier for my bike.
Yeah.
Somewhere to put me that flipping computer and all the other junk, so I can carry it around.
Most valuable advice you've received as a tech founder? Because,
make sure that you keep your IP. So even if you're outsourcing the development of what you're doing, make sure that in all those relationships that you build, that you keep the IP. So that though you're working with great people and they're doing great things, you own the value of what comes out of it.
Yeah. What's the most valuable failure you've had?
Oh, I think some of this is there may be personal ones working with people. I mentioned before, I sort of said flippantly, always hire people that are smarter than you, and you go out your way to try to do that, because it's no good hiring someone less smart than me, because how can I delegate to them? You want them to be able to be good at that. And I suppose it's a failing of me that I push people who I know are the strongest, and sometimes I push them too hard. Yeah. And in the past, I know I've hurt people by doing that. Yeah. So they might say, one day they might say, well, I benefited from working with Keiron, but I couldn't wait to get away from him either. Yeah, yeah. It's a great, honest answer, I guess. What gives you the most relief as a founder? One of the things that that I really enjoy is, again, it goes back to the people that I've worked with, and seeing people that I've worked with going on to set up their own companies, to become entrepreneurs in their own right, do great things, or go on to get great positions in corporates and other companies and that type of thing. To act as a stepping stone to see that, and you can't get more joy than seeing that. Yeah. So for all the faults, and I've got many in the world, that's my way of thinking. Well, not everything I've done is bad. Yeah, yeah. I guess that marks the end of it, really. Thank you so much for coming today. This was amazing. Thank you. Great. Thank you.